Ladies and gentlemen, we'll remain standing as we welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, GCON. The national anthem, please.
Your Excellency, the immediate past governor of the state of Osun, Ogbeni Rauf Adesoji Aregbesola. Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, Mrs. Noimot Salako Oyedele. The representative of the Governor of Lagos State, Mrs. Adebumi Elizabeth Adekonye. Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundipe. The National Amir of the Companion, Alhaji Thabit Wale Shonaike, FCIP. The guest speaker, Professor Fola Lasisi. All the discussants and participants of this fourth national discourse, members of the Companion and ladies of the Criterion, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say that I hope I'll be able to complete my own assignment in a shorter time than Prof. Thank you all very much. I want to thank the Companion especially for the invitation to be here. And it's a very pleasurable thing, and I've interacted in the past with them, but I hope that this will be the beginning or the continuation of even more interactions with you. I'm meeting with the ladies of the Criterion for the first time. I'm sure that in a lot of the engagements that you've had, as especially as citizens of Nigeria, one of the things that must strike you is that our country is surely in need of building unity. And I want to emphasize this. This is not part of my remit, but I want to emphasize this because this country is a great country. It's a huge country. It's a country of so much talent, but it can only be so if we're united, we're working as one. It can only be so, it can only benefit all of us if we're prepared to work as one country, regardless of faith, religion, regardless of ethnicity, and all other persuasions and considerations. We must keep our country one, and we must fight very hard to keep it one. Nothing should divide us. I'm going to be speaking for a few minutes, as I've said, and I will just be focusing on some of the efforts that were made in self-sufficiency in food production. Self-sufficiency in food production has been a major pillar of our own administration's economic policy. President Muhammad Buhari actually set a clear direction on this issue of self-sufficiency in food production when he said that we must eat, and we must produce what we eat, and we must consume what we produce. And we've backed that with substantial budgetary allocation to agriculture. In 2015, it was 8.8 billion. That was what was allocated to agriculture, federal, 8.8 billion. But by 2016, we had moved that to 46.2 billion. And by 2018, 103.8 billion is what we are putting in agriculture. And we've seen a tremendous growth in agricultural output. We've grown by 14.27%. That's 14.27% as of 2018. So there has been a massive surge, a massive growth in agricultural output. And we have backed that output by ensuring that we are funding it. But again, as you can imagine, This is just federal funding. And in a federation such as ours, where we have the states also contributing to agriculture, the aggregate must be quite interesting. But we also need the states to contribute to agriculture in the way that the federal government is driving agriculture in order to achieve the self-sufficiency that we're intent on achieving. Through the Anchor Borrowers Program, and some of us might have heard of the Anchor Borrowers Program, the president launched it in Kebbi State in November 2015. This is credit which we give directly to smallholder farmers, and it's given through the CBN, and there are about 13 participating banks. So far, credit totaling about 120.6 billion has been given to close to 1 million smallholder farmers. And most of them cultivate about 12 commodities: rice, wheat, cotton, soya beans, cassava, poultry, and groundnuts across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The Anchor Borrowers Program is now digitized. We now have it, in digital format. With all farmlands that are involved in the program, they are GPRS mapped, so we know where the farms are by GPRS. There's the biometric data of all the farmers involved has been captured. Electronic cards have been issued to each and every one of them, and all the specific inputs that they are given is also recorded. This has enhanced a great deal the traceability, and of course has enhanced productivity as well. So we can track the farmers, we know where they are, we know the inputs they've been given, and we know exactly how well they are performing. And all of this, as I said, is GPRS tracked. In addition, we launched a fertilizer program to improve local blending capacity in collaboration with the government of Morocco. Today, we have 11 fertilizer blending plants with a total capacity of about 2.1 million metric tons. Fertilizer prices for those who are farmers has dropped considerably from about 13,000 per 50 kg bag to about 6,000, between 5,500 and 6,000 per 50 kg bag. One of the important things about what has happened with fertilizer is that in the past we used to import our fertilizer and give the fertilizer to states. And of course, all manner of rackets happened, So the states will give it to emirs, will give it to obas and people, and they will distribute in the way they like or sell in the way they like. But now, because we now have our own blending plants, because it is now done locally and we're not importing fertilizer, access to the farmers is much easier. And the farmers themselves go and buy the fertilizer. We don't hand over fertilizer to any state governments anymore or to any local authorities. And this has proved to be much more effective. The farmers are a lot happier because they have access to it. Today, but for a few drawbacks, I must say that we're confidently approaching self-sufficiency in rice production, paddy rice production. Of course, for those of us who are farmers, paddy rice is unprocessed rice. It is rice in its unprocessed form before it is milled. So we more or less have reached a measure of self-sufficiency in paddy rice production. We have not come to the point of self-sufficiency in processed rice. Now, we used to import about $5 million of rice every single day. Every day, $5 million of rice. Official imports are now down to 2%. So where we used to import $5 million of rice every day, we're importing even less than 2% of that now. So we have really, it's greatly enhanced in terms of local supply. But local rice is still expensive. It's still more expensive than imported rice. And there are two reasons why that is so. The first is that imported rice, as you know, is subsidized. And I think Prof talked about farm subsidies. Most countries subsidize their farm products. So it's subsidized, and a lot of it has been stored in silos for a very long time. Production techniques in many other countries is also very effective, so they have greater productivity. In our case, we're at the point where we are producing enough paddy, but even our output is not as good as it could be. Although our output has increased by almost 10 times acreage, depending on where you are growing the rice. But we're still at a point where we can do so much better. Our yields can be better, much, much better. And once we're able to do that, once we're able to improve our yields and mill a lot of our rice, then our rice can compete with the imported rice in terms of pricing. But for now, we also intend to subsidize, which we are doing anyway, because in many cases, what we do is that we ensure that the rice farmers have a minimum price. It's not as effective as it could be, but at the moment, at least we're ensuring that they have a minimum price. They sell to the millers. In many cases, when they're able to sell to the millers, they sell at a minimum price. And government is able to manage that, manage that process so that they don't sell short, and they're not at a disadvantage when they sell. Because the moment the farmer sees that he's selling, that he produces rice now, price is high, next season price is low, he'll stop producing rice and go and find something else to do. So you really need to guarantee a minimum so that the farmers are encouraged to remain. And this is a sort of subsidy regime that we sometimes have to put in place. So we've opened up greater opportunities for entrepreneurial activity in the sector. And there's much more investment in value-added services in the entire value chain. In fact, what you'll see that in the last 3 years, more young entrepreneurs have taken to agriculture and taken advantage of the massive market for food and agricultural commodities. And they are doing well at it. Many young people are getting into agriculture, and they're getting into it smart. I'll give you just 3 examples. There's a company called Farm Crowdy. This is a digital agriculture portal, and I'm sure if you Google it up, you'll find their portal. Now this portal, what they do is that they source funds from across Nigeria. If you are interested in investing in a farm, you will simply give them the money. Of course, they have a digital payment method. You give them the money. They have several farms all over the country, and they invest in the farms. They also supervise the farms. They provide extension workers to the farms and all that. And then you get dividends. When they sell their harvests, they then provide dividends for all of those who are involved, who are, if you like, shareholders in their company. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. It was founded in 2016 by 3 young Nigerians. Onyeka Akuma was the lead person there. And essentially it works, as I've said, like a mutual fund. So they pull together money from multiple investors to establish farms, and they hire the smallholder farmers to cultivate the farms and then pay the investors, you and I, dividends from the harvest. In December 2017, they raised $1 million in funding. They were given, funding, and this is all private funding from different angel investors. 4 years before Farm Crowdy was founded, there's a lady called Yemi in Roloye. She founded a company called Sultry. Sultry is a cassava processing company and is in the town of Ado-Awaye. The starch that this company produces, is now used by several leading Nigerian food manufacturing companies, including Nestle, Unilever, Nigerian breweries, etc. They are increasingly replacing imported starch with locally sourced varieties. So Sultry was one of those companies that found growth opportunities even in the midst of the recession. And as companies cut down on their imports, they found that this was a great advantage. As we've heard, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world. But cassava processing is where greater opportunities lie. And this is where this company, for instance, has managed to plug in. In 2015, this company's revenues grew threefold. And in 2016, it began building a second production line. So they are actually making greater progress, And what you can see is that the market is so huge. The market is just incredibly huge, and they cannot satisfy the market. So there are a few others who are now coming into cassava processing. The next level for us as a government is extending agricultural credit more extensively, especially to farmers in the South. For some strange reason, farmers in the South are not, or those of us in the South, are not as keen on agriculture as those in the North. Some people say, It's because it's more difficult to clear land, it's more expensive to clear land. Maybe people have all sorts of reasons. But we can see that there's a great deal more activity, a great deal more farming activity in the north, and of course a great deal more prosperity coming from agriculture. So part of what we're doing is that we're constructing more dams to strengthen irrigation practices. 7 of such projects have been completed already. In 2018, we completed the Kashambila Dam in Taraba State, the Oguashiki Dam in Delta State, the Shagari Irrigation Project in Sokoto State. Then we did the Galdam Dam, that's in Kaduna State, a Keremo Water Supply Project in Edo State. We also have Mangu Water Supply Project in Plateau, Federal University of Agriculture, Makurdi. They also have a water supply project, that's in Benue State. 13 more dams that will be completed before 2020. So there is quite, a lot of work going on, especially to encourage irrigation, to encourage fadamas or the dry season farming. So there's a lot of activity. And the work with subnational governments, with the states, there's also a lot of work going on. We're hoping that we can do even more with the states to provide access roads to farms for easy conveyance of products and inputs, especially between markets and the farms. So the most important thing really is that the federal government cannot do its agricultural program alone. All of the land is in the states. All of the access routes, of course, are in the states. So the states, really, there's a great deal of collaboration that is needed. A critical component also of our agricultural program is what is called the green imperative. And I think this green imperative is particularly interesting. The main idea is to move from the prevailing basic form of agriculture to a much more mechanized system, because we really need to mechanize agriculture to improve productivity. So this particular program, which you call the Green Imperative, is driven by the private sector. The entire value chain will be developed from production through industrial processing to logistics, marketing, and it will involve full technology transfer. The Nigerian government, along with, in partnership with the Brazilian government, is providing the finance. As a matter of fact, the Brazilian government is providing the finance through the provision of machinery, equipment, inputs, and services. So what is going on is that the Brazilian government, the Brazilians have a lot of agricultural equipment. They're very advanced in agricultural equipment. In fact, in livestock farming, there's a state, I believe, in Brazil that has far more. I think it's almost about 30 million or so heads of cows in one place. So they are very advanced in livestock farming, and their livestock is very prolific. So we've partnered with them. They are providing $1 billion in agricultural equipment. And the way by which we're trying to work this is to ensure, first of all, that at the top of the mechanization chain, we have 6 assembly plants. These 6 assembly plants are to be spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. The assembly plants will undertake the assembly of tractors and processing equipment, as well as light manufacturing of parts, which will be sent out to the service centers closer to the farms across the length and breadth of the country. The first assembly plant, amongst a total of 6, which is to operate where we're assembling already, is in Bauchi. Now, this one in Bauchi is an existing facility which is owned by a private operator. That's the first of the assembly plants for the tractors and other equipment. It's projected that at least 5,000 tractors will be assembled this year in this one plant, in this Bauchi plant. There will also be a total of about 780 service centers across all the local governments of Nigeria, in all the states, and of course the Federal Capital Territory is included. Primarily, what a service center is that it will provide a technology package consisting of machinery and equipment services. So we have mechanization, we have rental of tractors. Each service center would have its own facilities. It will also have inputs, it will have seed varieties, fertilizers, and pesticides, so that anybody who is farming in the close vicinity or within the vicinity of a service center can access agricultural equipment by renting. They can access inputs, can access seeds, they can access all other types of inputs from that particular service center. The whole idea is to bring both mechanization and inputs as close to the farmer as possible. And we have, as I said, we have a lot of experience with the Brazilians who have done this, of course, with great success in their countries. And so they will be doing the hand-holding for our own people until they are able to they're able to do this effectively by themselves. So in order to ensure consistent results of productivity and quality of agricultural produce, we intend to extend this service to all of the different local governments and all of the different areas where active farming is going on. The service center will also perform an important market function of being able to aggregate primary produce for processing and haulage to markets. This establishes a means for monetizing and loan repayment based on a percentage of agricultural production. Let me just explain very quickly. Aggregation is a very important part of the whole farming process. So you have these smallholder farmers everywhere, but a smallholder farmer cannot rent a vehicle to carry his produce from the farm to the market. So we have an aggregation point. Each of the service centers is also an aggregation point. So they take their products, the product can be taken to the aggregation point. And it is from the aggregation point that they are paid. It is from the aggregation point that if they have loans, loans are deducted from what they are paid, and then their goods are then sent, their produce is then sent to markets from that point. 109 of these service centers will be located in the 109 senatorial districts of Nigeria, and they'll be called process service centers. But in addition, the process service centers will be able to serve as throughput from which we can add some value to agricultural products, especially those that are brought in by the local farmers. So service centers will be based on the comparative and complementary advantage that each location has and along existing value chains. So for now, the value chains that we'll be servicing using these service chains will be grains, cereal, livestock, poultry, fruits, roots, and tubers. Some horticulture also, and and we hope that we'll be able, especially livestock and poultry, we hope we'll be able to do quite a bit of that. So for us, the green imperative, as we've called it, is the next level for Nigerian agriculture. But we're still very far from our targets for self-sufficiency in food production, because the fact that there's such a huge gap between what we hope and where we are, it means that there is tremendous opportunity for investments. But even more exciting are the prospects for export. Because when you look at the opportunities today, they are simply mind-boggling. The story of investors in agriculture in Nigeria is really worth hearing. There's a Mexican farmer, his name is Carlos, and he is a proprietor of farms called San Carlos Farms, possibly the largest farmer of vegetables, bananas, pineapples in Mexico, but he's invested in Nigeria in several different locations. A lot of those who invited him to partner with them wanted him to grow vegetables, grow bananas and pineapples, and then export, because this was what he did so successfully in Mexico. The idea was, of course, to grow this, but what happened, he now has about 5,000 hectares of farms in about 6 states. Then he's taken another 10,000 hectares. After his first harvest, he exported nothing at all, but he was able to give all his investors a very decent profit. And his partners asked him what the magic was. His answer was, we can't even satisfy the local demand. The local demand is so high that we can't satisfy it. So what's the point of exporting? You can't even deal with local demand. And he was selling locally at the equivalent of $3 per kg And in Europe, you would have been selling for $1 per kg. So it was doing much better locally. And which is really the point. You know, there's so much opportunity because we have a huge market. Everybody has been talking of the African Free Trade Continental Zone. When will Nigeria sign? Where will Nigeria sign? Why is everybody interested in Nigeria signing? Because we are the market. We are the big market. Where else is a market as large as ours in Africa? So everybody wants to do business here. Everybody wants to export something here if they can. But we have a huge market, and we need to take advantage of that market. Even if we are selling to ourselves alone, there's so much room for prosperity. We still have a substantial percentage of the world's arable land. We are the 9th largest in terms of available arable land in the world today. We are the 9th largest. And most of that land, we haven't even cultivated it anyway. So it's becoming clearer that the whole world itself is looking to Africa, and Nigeria in particular, as its food basket. Just to take China's demand alone, the demand that China has been making on, you know, so many different things that we produce. China has 27% of the world's population, but it has only 7% of the world's arable land for agriculture. So it needs 2 million tons of hybrid soybeans per annum for livestock and feed and vegetable oil. We cannot even meet that demand. We are not even close to meeting it. Sesame seed, it needs about 2 million tons per annum. China needs 2 million tons per annum. That's the demand from China, from Vietnam, from Japan, and and some of the Arab countries. But we can't even meet that. They need it for sesame seed oil. They need it for cake and confectionaries. But we are not even close to it. China also requires 2.3 million tons of cassava chips and cassava products for industrial starch and ethanol. We don't even, with all of our production, we are not even coming close because we are not processing the kind of quantity that they need. Africa, the whole of Africa, has not been able to meet China's total demand for cocoa. For cocoa, we have not been able, the whole of Africa, not just Nigeria. So the demand is huge. How about goat meat? How about goat meat? 120,000 carcasses of goat meat is required every week in several Arab countries. 120,000 carcasses. We don't even have that. We're still, in Lagos, I think we do about 10,000 cows. I think it's about 10,000 cows that we do in Lagos. We simply don't have, the required output, and there's so much that's waiting. Most of Vietnam's demand for over 2.5 million tons of cashew is unmet. All of the cashew that we produce, everything we export, we send to Vietnam, and it doesn't even scratch the surface because they still need 2.5 million tons, So Nigeria's role as a food provider to the world, and especially in the next few decades, is very clear. There's no question at all that if we focus on production of food, if we focus on production of food locally, and focus on it even for export, the sky really, as I say, is the limit. In the next few years, Nigeria will be self-sufficient in most of its food requirements. And I believe we'll be net exporters of several different foods as well. We'll be net exporters if we keep our focus. Of course, there are many, many challenges. The conflicts in the northeast, northwest, farmer-herder clashes, and all of those things are the challenges. But they are challenges. And challenges, of course, are meant to be dealt with. They're meant to be resolved. And we will, by the grace of God, resolve a lot of those challenges. So with better inputs today and better farming methods, this will greatly aid our leapfrogging. We are at the best time in history, the very best time in history. Technology is on our side. All of the new inputs that increase acreage, increase yield, everything is available today. There is no time that is better than this time in the history of the world for achieving all of our own objectives as a nation and as a people. And I pray that the Almighty God will help us to achieve everything that we want to achieve. Thank you very much.
Presentation of plaque to the Vice President of Nigeria was done by Alhaji Tunde Popola.
Sir, on behalf of the companion, this gold award is presented to you, Professor Yemi Osibanjo. SANGCON, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in appreciation of your contribution to the success of our 4th National Discourse on Food Security. We thank you so much, sir. Sir, on behalf of the companion, this gold award is presented to you, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, SANGCON, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in appreciation of your contribution to the success of our 4th National Discourse on Food Security. We thank you so much, sir.